Hi everyone, my name is Aisha Wakar. I will be going over Chapter 10, Radical Behaviorism, from the book called Radical Behaviorism for ABA Practitioners, written by James M. Johnson. So the chapter started off by talking about two BCBAs, Lynn and Penny. Lynn just recently received her master's in ABA, and she's basically a new BCBA compared to Penny, and they had some differences because it turned out that Penny had a course related to radical behaviorism, and Lynn's program just touched base on radical behaviorism. Okay, so the first section was called the philosophy of the science of behavior analysis. In this section, it defined behavior. Behavior is considered something that can be seen in nature. Later on, they used Skinner definition to define radical behaviorism, which is the philosophy of science. The philosophy of science of behavior treated as a subject matter in its own, apart from internal explanation, mental or physiological. So basically what that is saying is that it is only the things that we can observe, and nothing like feelings is a part of it. Radical behaviorism is the science of behavior analysis. Then I talked about some key features of behavior analysis. One of the major features is behavior. Later on, the book had a little box, and the box was called Behavior Analysis and Neuroscience. And in this little box, it was just talking about how past experiences and present environmental factors frame our behavior. Then in the next box, 10.2, was called Theory and Theoretical Terms. Theory is, it started talking about how theory is not just about gathering facts, but it also looks at research that supports the researcher's ideas. And later on, the author talked about theoretical terms. So theoretical terms are broken into two categories: intervening variables. Intervening variables are statements that don't have research to support it. And then the second category is hypothetical construct, which is defined as statements that is supported by research. Both of these categories are unobservable. And it also said that theorizing is part of verbal behavior. The next section is called historical context. This section looked at the history of radical behavior. The first term that was introduced was called behaviorism. Behaviorism focuses on only behavior, and it doesn't focus on the mental phenomena. This term was associated with John B. Watson. And then there was another term called classical SR behaviorism, which is defined as that psychologists should only study behavior, and mental phenomena is imaginary and not accepted in a science of behavior. This research was based off a model where the antecedent stimuli caused the response under examination. The goal of classical behaviorism was prediction and control of observation behavior. Later on, another term was introduced, which was called SOR behaviorism. Environmental events, S, were seen as a leading to the organism mental progress O, that is turned to behavioral outcome R. And then the last term that was introduced was called operationalism. So they had a little box. So this box explained a lot about operationalism. This concept grew in the early 20th century. It means that a term can change This term means that a meaning of a term can change according to your experiences. Skinner disagreed with this concept. He did not think that personal experiences changed behavior. Because B.F. Skinner was not impressed with this term, he came out with a new term called radical behaviorism. He wrote a book called The Behavior of Organism, which was all about radical behaviorism. He talked about how behavior should be studied on its own, and it shouldn't look at other factors like mental phenomena. And he also wrote a book about verbal behavior. And then I forgot to mention the previous box, which was about John B. Watson. So it was just a little biography about John B. Watson. He was best known for his article, which was written in 1913, Psychology as the Behaviorists Views It. His term behaviorism was emphasized with Pavlov's discoveries about classical conditioning. He was also elected president for American Psychological Association, and he wrote a lot about child development. The next section was called Radical versus Methodological Behaviorism. It defined the term methodological behaviorism, which is when you look at why a behavior happens or happened, and you also observe the behavior. Compared to in radical behaviorism, you just observe the behavior. You don't look at the why factor. Okay, and then there was the next box called 10.5, which talked about varieties of behaviorism. In this box, the author just talked about the varieties of behaviorism, such as philosophical behaviorism, logical behaviorism, conceptual analysis, and metaphysical behaviorism. So there are other types of behaviorism, not only radical and methodological behaviorism. Later on, the box also talked about another behaviorism called behavioral psychology, which was a term created by J.R. Cantor, which is very similar. This term is very similar to radical behavior. The only difference is that he focused more on treating the entire organism as part of a field. This concludes my presentation, and my question to you guys would be, which behaviorism do you prefer, radical or methodological behaviorism? Do you think that we should just only look at behavior itself, or it is important to look at the why factor as well? Please also comment down below if I missed any key points or if I misunderstood anything from this chapter. Thank you and have a great night. Bye.